Hello and welcome to this first episode of the Cycling Podcast. Today, we're just going to recap and analyze this year's Giro d'Italia. The Giro d'Italia won by Jai Hindley. Yeah, probably a surprise. Not many people thought about that at the beginning, but yeah, Jai Hindley has won the Giro d'Italia, the 26-year-old Australian. But before we go into this in detail, let's just go over a few interesting statistics about this Giro d'Italia, this 105th edition of the race. The edition was 3,438 kilometers long, a bit longer than usual. Usually, the average in total over all the years is 3,597 kilometers, which is well over the number of this year's amount of kilometers. But in the past few years, the average has been 3,490 kilometers. That means even though it's smaller than the average kilometer over the 105 years, this year was still always shorter than usual. If you talk about the speed, this year's Giro d'Italia speed was an average of 39.73 kilometers an hour, while in the average Giro speed of all editions is 34.95 kilometers an hour. That means that it's been, well, much faster than other years, even though in the past decade we've been over the 40 kilometers an hour mark over over all the 21 stages. Also this year, the average length of a stage was 164 kilometers, while in total over the past 105 years, the average length was 201 kilometers, which is a lot of kilometers over the average we've had this year. The past decade, it's been 170 kilometers in average, which is slightly longer than this year. But that's enough statistics. And yes, let's talk about the actual winner. Yes, so this year's winner is Jai Hindley. Jai Hindley, who also came second place 2 years ago after Theo Gegenhardt in a very, very surprising Giro after a lot of main riders or favorites left the race. Because we should remember it was also in a Corona year. Jai Hindley did finish second place that year after just losing out to Theo Gegenhardt in the final stage, which was a time trial. Jai Hindley conquered the Maglia Rosa on the one before last stage, a mountain stage, from his teammate Wilco Kelderman, if you remember the whole scandal going on there, and started the last stage with a second faster than Theo Gegenhardt. In the end, he did lose out to Theo Gegenhardt, which was probably a big disappointment. And the year after, 2021, was quite of a disappointment, I must say, for Hindley. He didn't get any good results. He finished 7th in the Tour of Pologne and finished 6th in a stage of the Tour of the Alps. Nothing much season. He did the Giro d'Italia but didn't finish it as he quit after 13 stages, which was a bit of a disappointment. And we all thought it was just a fluke. In general, Jai Hindley's previous wins was the Tour of Fuzhou in 2017 or the Jayco Herald Sun Tour also in 2020, that successful year with Corona, remember? But in 2022, the 26-year-old Australian surprised everyone and finished first in the general classification, and at the same time also taking the win at Blockhouse, a very, very tough stage, finishing in a group sprint or a small group sprint with the favourites of the general classification. Now, Jai Hindley has been tipped to maybe do the Tour de France this year, and he said maybe, why not? I can't say no. I'm not going to say no for these answers. He's also said that he's never ridden the Tour before, right? He's ridden, if I'm not mistaken, 4 Giros and a Vuelta. And he said, this is my 5th year as a pro. The Tour de France is his next big goal. It's a big step ahead for him, but also he doesn't think that if he joins this year or next year, he won't straight away go for the GC, maybe for a few mountain stages. He says he wants to just join the Tour, see what he can do if the level isn't too hard. But he says maybe this year I won't do it, probably next year. This year I'll maybe do the Vuelta, probably do the Vuelta. He also says he remembers Cadel Evans winning the Tour in 2011, which was one of the greatest achievements by an Australian cyclist. Now let's talk a bit about Australian cyclists. Why not? I mean, obviously we just mentioned Cadel Evans. Yeah, he's probably the most famous Australian cyclist ever. Yes, as we said, in 2011, at the age of 34, he won the Tour de France after finishing 2.5 minutes quicker than Andy and Frank Schleck in the time trial at the end of a 42.5 kilometer time trial. Cadel Evans also won the World Cup of cycling. He won the World Championship in 2009, also finishing on the podium of the Vuelta that year, and also finishing 2013 on the podium of the Giro d'Italia. He retired in 2015. If we talk about other famous Australian cyclists, we can't get past Russell Mockbridge. Russell Mockbridge, um, he was quite a good cyclist. Not many people know about him, and sadly enough, he did die after when he was 30 years old with a collision with a bus during a race. Well, the more popular cyclist people might know nowadays is Robin McEwen. Robin McEwen, he was a very good sprinter, probably in his day, the best sprint on earth. He won the green jersey in the Tour de France 3 times and was a very, very popular cyclist. Now, nowadays, the best cyclists are from Australia, probably Richie Porte, um, Jai Hindley, and Luke Plapp. We'll talk about in a minute. But Richie Porte, let's just concentrate on Richie Porte. He did have quite a good Giro in service for Richard Carapaz, but did have to leave in the last stages in the Dolomites. Yes, he didn't feel well anymore and had to leave the race, even though he did have quite a good race, being actually a domestique in the mountains for Richard Carapaz and doing a really good job. Richie Porte, a very successful cyclist, probably since Cadel Evans, the most famous one from us coming from down under. He won Paris-Nice twice, the Volta a Catalunya once, the Tour of Romandy he won, the Tour Down Under he won twice, the Tour of Swiss as well, the Dauphiné he won last year. He also won the Young Riders classification, the Giro d'Italia in 2010, and he also finished on the podium of the Tour de France in 2020. Well, that's quite a successful career, slowly coming to an end, but you should remember Richie Porte. He was a very successful cyclist, and if we look at the future of Australian cyclists, it looks maybe even better, because Luke Plapp, the 21-year-old from Australia, born in Melbourne, he's only 21, he joined the Innes Grenadiers this year, and has had a very successful week himself too in the Tour of Norway, finishing 3rd overall and finishing twice on the podium in the 6-stage race. Otherwise this year, Luke Plapp also won the Australian National Championships at the beginning of the year. He also finished 5th on Jebel Khafit in the UAE Tour, taking 12th overall and 3rd in the youth classification. He also did finish 6th in a Circuit de Sarthe, which wasn't actually a very major success, but eventually finished 2nd in the Tour of Romandy and 9th overall in that classification. He did also, this year he won the Australian National Championship, and last year he won it with the individual time trial, which shows he's probably quite a complete rider, and he should be someone to look at the future, which is very exciting for Australian cycling, right? You've got Jai Hindley, 26, 5 year his junior is Luke Plapp, two very, very strong cyclists who could be in the making for winning more and more general classifications at big stages, big stage races. Talk about Jai Hindley. Let's go back to Jai Hindley, right? So over the past 3 weeks, he was always very, very close to the wheel of Richard Carapaz. It was Mikel Landa trying to attack, and straight away Jai Hindley and Richard Carapaz stuck to his wheel. Then Richard Carapaz tried to attack, and Jai Hindley stayed sticking to his wheel, and so on and so on. And yeah, they never were able to get loose of each other till actually Jai Hindley was never 10 seconds away in the general classification from Richard Carapaz. And in stage 20 to the Pasafedaya in Marmolada, was only 3 seconds the gap between the two at the beginning of the stage, but going up the Marmolada, Jai Hindley managed to push away from Richard Carapaz after his teammate Lennart Kemna setting the pace. More about that later, about Kemna and his very impressive Giro. Pushing away from Richard Carapaz after Landa previously cracked, and in just 3 kilometers up the Passo Fedaya, he won the Giro d'Italia, having a gap of 1 minute 28 in the end of that ascent of the Marmolada. He knows this area really well, especially the area blockhouse where bora handgrohe do a lot of training, and that paid off, But let's talk more about bora handgrohe. Why not? Bora handgrohe, what a successful Giro. I mean, come on. They came there with a really strong team consisting of course of Jai Hindley, Emanuel Buchmann, also having Lennart Kemna there. I mean, it was a very strong team, and with multiple chances to go GC, Lennart Kemna straight away went down the route of stage wins, winning in the Etna, the first actual mountain stage. I think it shouldn't be called a mountain stage anymore, because nothing really happens between the GC. We just know who isn't good enough. But in the end, Lennart Kemna, very strong Giro. He did really impress me over this Giro, and in the end, like I said, in stage 20, Lennart Kemna went in the attack in the breakaway of the day, which seemed a bit odd. Now, after Landa cracked and Richard Carapaz was alone with Jai Hindley, Jai Hindley saw Lennart Kemna in front of him. He closed the gap to his teammate. His teammate, Lennart Kemna, put a torturous pace on. He just emptied himself all the way out, which cracked Richard Carapaz. And in the end, after Richard Carapaz had cracked, Lennart Kemna put him side away and ran off with the Marmolada, and eventually that made him win the Giro d'Italia. Great thinking by Ralph Denk, the general manager. Great work in general. I mean, this season they've been really impressive, throwing away Peter Sagan and that whole project and all his domestiques, and bringing in quite a few, concentrating much more on GC, bringing in the likes of Alexander Vlasov, bringing in Wilco Kelderman and Jai Hindley. Sam Bennett as well for the sprints with Danny Van Poppel. Very good tandem in my opinion. And the team is also very complete. Marco Haller, very strong rider. He did win actually this week as well in the Tour of Norway, a group sprint. Very impressive of Marco Haller. They also have a young rider like Jan Uiterboeks, who this week also in the Tour of Norway finished 7th overall, if I'm not mistaken, or 8th overall. Very strong from such a young rider. Oh yes, they also brought in Sergio Higuita. Sergio Higuita also having a very impressive season for his new club, winning the national jersey, winning his national race, and winning the Tour, and winning the Vuelta Ciclista Catalunya. Alexander Vlasov also winning the Tour of Romandie, Sam Bennett winning Eschborn-Frankfurt. I mean, overall, a very strong team, and I can't wait to see what they'll do during the Tour de France. Probably in the Tour de France, they bring out Vlasov and Higuita. Probably Bennett is going to be there for the sprints. I mean, that's a really strong team. It's a very strong. I mean, they're gonna really impress me. I mean, as well at the same time, we forgot to talk about Manuel Buchmann. Manuel Buchmann finished 7th overall as well in the GC, staying a long time in the top 5 of the GC, which is, I mean, after a few years of a disappointment, it's very strong. Well, so bora handgrohe, they really impressed me this Giro, and we can't wait to see what else is going to come from them. We talk about bora handgrohe, so let's talk about a few other teams in this Giro I wanted to talk about. First of all, Intermarché Wanty-Gobert. Wow. 2 stage wins and 2 riders in the top 10. That's just incredible. I mean, Jan Heet and Bini Girmay winning stages, historic stages for Bini Girmay, and 2 riders in the top 10 with Pozzo Vivo, who is 38 years old, just remember. And Jan Hirt, of course, very, very impressive. 16 times in the top 10, which is incredible for, especially for the team with the smallest budget in the World Tour. They're probably safe. They're not going to get relegated to the pro off to them from the World Tour. I mean, all I can do is take my hat off for Intermarché, Wanty Gobert, incredible. Also for Albus and Phoenix, who are next year probably going to be in the World Tour. 3 wins, Van der Poel, Dries de Bont and Stefano Oldani. Mobo Van der Poel soon, but very impressive from the Continental Pro team, who should is one of the best world teams in my opinion next year. Poupon FDG, 3 stage winner of Arnaud Demar, who won the purple jersey, very impressive. Now Bayern victorious, let's talk about them. Nick Landa finally on the podium again, not finishing fourth. Poel Bilbao also finished in the top 5, which is quite good. They did win the team's classification, with Santiago Buitrago winning a stage, which was very impressive, a star for the future. Let's see what they do. They were okay. They were very, very good, solid team. They maybe expected a bit more, but I mean, the fact Michelanda managed to finish a Grand Tour without any trouble is, I think, a success in itself. Then the Tour, Matim Horish will probably go there. Caruso and Dylan Turns maybe as well. So it's looking bright for Baron Victorious, who are victorious quite often. Another team I wanted to mention was Team Bike Exchange. Just to mention that they won both time trials. Maybe anyone interested in time trialing should buy the time trialing bike. I mean, that was quite impressive. Movistar, quite an anonymous Giro. Alexander Valverde finishing 11th, and so do AG Design Citroën having anonymous Giro. Confidence weren't great. Israel Premier Tech, ooh, that was really not good Giro. They were heavily reliant on Nizzolo and maybe Alexander De Marchi in the breaks, but nothing came out of that, and they're in trouble of going down next year and not being in the World Tour anymore. UAE Team Emirates, they were very unlucky with Jai Almeida, who was 4th at the moment in general classification, losing out because of the coronavirus, but they did bounce back with Alexander Covi winning the 20th stage very impressively of the Giro d'Italia. Now, Ineos Grenadiers, let's talk about them. There was a saying that they first of all, let's see their lineup. Ineos Grenadiers lineup was Richard Carapaz, Castro Viejo, Jonathan Narvaez, Richie Port, Salvador Puccio, Pavel Sivakov, Ben Swift, and Ben Tullett. Now, it's quite a strong lineup, and they were all working for Richard Carapaz. And he did pay them back. I mean, he was very well. He was very good. He was leading the general classifications after that ride to Torino, and in general, he was very, very strong. He was very, very strong. What I do want to mention is that he did only lose the Giro d'Italia in 3 kilometers at the end. He wasn't very explosive though, and Puccio and Port and Sivakov were working really hard for him in the mountains, and he was never able to do this final acceleration, to take away Andlander and Jai Hindley. And in the end of the day, that did cost him, because the moment he cracked, he did really crack and lost 1.1 minute 28 in just 3 kilometers on the Marmelada, which is a shame for the winner of the Giro d'Italia 2019. He won't win it again this year. Yes, it's a shame also for the Ineos Grenadiers, because from what I understood, they think Richard Carapaz is the strongest GC rider. That's up for discussion. In my opinion, Danny Martinez is super strong, maybe even stronger than Richard Carapaz, and they brought him here to the Giro in order that he will win here and won't have to come up against Pogacar or Roglic in the Tour. They plan to bring Adam Yates to the tour together with Martinez with a total different lineup. And this did come back in their face because in the end of the day, they didn't win. They didn't win the Giro d'Italia, which is a very, very big disappointment for them, I'm sure. But enough said about the Ineos Grenadiers and about Richard Carapaz, who did have his 29th birthday on the final day of the Giro d'Italia, not able to celebrate as much as he wanted, I guess. But let's talk about a few figures who did pop up my eye, like in the past 3 weeks of the Giro d'Italia. So let's start with Leonard Kemnev, of course. Mentioned about him before in the show, in this podcast, and yeah, it was just fun watching him. It was just really fun. He wore the blue jersey, the mountain king of the mountains for a while. He won stages. He was in the break a lot. He helped Hindley get loose of Carapaz in the end. I mean, very strong Giro. Maybe he should even go for, let's say, in the Vuelta, try GC or something. Just an idea for him. He was very, very strong. Let's talk about Mathieu van der Poel. Wow, he loves Italy, I'm telling you. If Italy loves him back, we're not sure about all that pineapple business. But what Giro? Like incredible. First of all, he did win the first stage, and he took all the jerseys, of course, winning the first stage, except the white one. And in the second stage, in the time trial in Budapest, he finished second, just behind Yates, and managed to keep on hold to his jersey. Only at the Etna did he lose it. Well, didn't expect him to keep it, but amazing. Then he went in the break another 5 times during this Giro, including the last stage on the Marmolada. I mean, that's incredible. No, it wasn't the 19th stage, I'm sorry. Super hot stage. And he was in the breakaway. Like, what? Like, I'm telling you this. Maybe he's trying to copy Wout van Aert. I don't know. But it was incredible. Just every time he tried in the sprint, sometimes against Girmay, where, he was very sportsmanlike, putting up his thumb after Girmay won the race. In the end, he was doing wheelies up the mountain, helping Mollema up the mountains. He was just enjoying himself, and I think the Italians enjoyed him too. Maybe not about the pineapple pizza, which Italians weren't very keen about, but in the end, very, very strong race from Mathieu van der Poel. Now, let's turn to a different Mathieu. Mathieu Baes, not Mathieu, but Mathieu Baes. I mean, he's 25 years old from Rovereto, and he rides for Drone Hopper. He won the classification, I think, for the most kilometers in the breakaway. I mean, in the Giro, all these weird classifications exist. Just wanted to mention him because he was just ever present. He was just every time it was a flat stage, even though there was no chance of him winning, he tried his best. And to just be there and just maybe give a bit of advertisement for his sponsors, just I don't know. Just every time there's a flat stage, you expected somehow Bice to be in the breakaway. It was just, yeah, he was just like the man of the boring stages, put it that way. Different rider, Bini Girmay, historic. I mean, the win in Yessi, winning the sprint of Mathieu van der Poel. But that's only that. Also on the first stage, he finished second. He wore the points jersey for quite a while. He finished fourth in the sprint in stage 3, finishing fifth and fourth again in stage 5 and stage 6, finishing fifth in the stage that Thomas de Gent won in Napoli, and then winning in Jesse with the sprint against Mathieu van der Poel. I mean, that was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, historic for Africa. It was 22-year-old. He's now gone back. He's not going to do the Tour de France. The team says something about the pressure. He just wants to calm down. He's back in Eritrea with his family. I mean, special lad. Shame he can continue. I mean, yeah, that was a bit of a shame. That cork incident flying up his eye. I hope he's all right. I hope he's all right. Now let's go to the King of the Mountains, Koen Bouwman. Now, seriously, tell me in the comments, did anyone really expect Koen Bouwman to win the King of the Mountains classification? Now, seriously, I mean, till now, his only big win of his career was 2017, the stage in the Dauphiné. But, I mean, the win to Potenza, where he won with the help of Tom Dumoulin, every time he got up the mountain, he gave a short burst of energy and took the mountain points. I mean, it was incredible what he did. Every mountain stage he was present. I mean, he gave his King of the Mountains jersey pride. And then to the stage to Santiago de Castelmonte, he basically he won another stage after maybe a bit controversial, but it was incredible. I mean, take my hat off to Koen Bouwman. I mean, I didn't expect it. At least I didn't expect it, and he's a pretty good climber. Yeah. Let's go to a different Dutchman. I mean, the Dutchmen were very, very impressive this year, I must say. Bauke Mollema also being very impressive. Poel's a bit less. Bauke Mollema, who did extend his contract for another 4 years just after the Giro. But let's go to time announcement. Now, I put him in my cycling fantasy team. I'm very proud of my decision. And he had a very good Giro. He finished 4th in the youth classification. And but apart from that, he finished twice second. He finished second in the visual time trial in Verona, and second in the stage to Africa. That stage to Africa, the stage which Jan Hurt won, probably the Queen stage, very hard stage. And then he was just ever present in the mountains, the Pasifidaya. He finished 5th, in Torino finishing 19th, top 10 place on the Blockhouse, top 10 the visual time trial in Budapest. I mean, he's a very, very complete rider as well. You know, maybe reminds a bit of Ben Tollett. We mentioned him in the beginning of the video. He's having a very good year. He's having a very, very good year, actually. I remember him last year in the Vuelta being very good in the breakaways. He's only 22. I mean, it's just incredible. He also finished second in the youth classification in Torino Adriatico, and he finished first in the youth classification in Tour of the Alps. Like it's incredible. I mean, he has a very big future ahead of him. Yes, wish him all the best, and yeah, brilliant rider. And from one young rider to the next, let's go to the winner of the youth classification, Juanpe Lopez. Juanpe Lopez getting the youth classification. He won the pink jersey actually after the ride to Etna, where he finished second after Leonard Kamna. And then he wore the jersey, if I'm not mistaken, for 10 days, 10 or 11 days. He eventually lost it, I think, when he went to Cuneo, which is, I mean, nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, come on, this rider is 24. He did finish 11th in the Basque Country, beginning of the year, so there might have been signs of this coming, but getting it till the end within the youth classifications, maybe he was held with João Almeida, leaving unfortunately because of Corona, but very impressive of Juanpe Lopez. Also, big future ahead of him. I'm sure he's went up the pecking order of Trek Segafredo, and also bright future ahead of him. Now, with all these bright futures, I hope there'll be also a bright future ahead of this new cycling podcast. I mean, I hope it wasn't interesting. If you want to change anything, please tell me what to change, what I should add, what I should take away, and give likes, subscribe to this channel. It's new, and we'll see where this is gonna be going in the future. I hope you enjoyed. This was the cycling podcast, and see you next time, or hear me next time. I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to finish up. Just suggest me how to finish podcast. I have no idea. Anyway, goodbye for now.